something so rare that it hasn't happened for 30 years. And, I don't think it's a very good look for Xbox. I don't think it's a very good, realistically, it's probably not a great look for anyone in the gaming industry, but in particular Xbox. You're just kind of like sitting there, and I just feel like that this is kind of indicative of the big issues that we're facing as gamers and fans and things like that. Are things going to continue to go this way? Are things going to change? Is Microsoft, do they have any chance at reigniting the sales of getting people on board with any of their hardware? I mean, that's going to be a big question. I mean, it's easy to go and make excuses and say, well, there could be people not buying Xbox because they're holding back for next generation. The problem is, next generation could be multiple years from now, and we don't know what that's exactly going to entail. Is it really going to be a PC? Is it going to be $1,200? Is it going to be $1,000? With the memory situation that we're in, Microsoft and Sony could both be wanting to hang on to this generation a little bit longer, and so that leaves Microsoft in a very bad spot because I don't think they're making Series X and S consoles anymore. So are they really going to bother making something new anytime soon while there's still this shortage of memory thanks to the AI stuff? Like, that's a big question that I feel like a lot of people probably won't know the answer to for a while. But Xbox sales have just reached an all-time November low. They're saying that they sold under 200,000 units for the entire month of November. This was a month that almost guarantees you 1 million units across the world, because everybody's trying to buy stuff. Now, 70%, they were down. PlayStation was down too, 40%. The difference is PlayStation last November broke all kinds of records. So you went from a record-breaking November last year to one that wasn't as big this year. And I mean, obviously that's still not great, but I think in comparison to Xbox, who also had a bad November last year and an even worse November this year, like next to nobody's buying an Xbox. So we learned that November was surprisingly a bad month for video games across the board. Hardware dollar sales and physical software units were both at the lowest since 1995. And all three major console makers were down year on year in what's traditionally the biggest month for retail. But one console in particular really struggles, and that's the Xbox. According to Circana Senior Director Matt Piscatella, speaking to IGN, Xbox Series console sales were down a whopping 70% year over year. That's a huge drop. Other consoles were down, with PS5 down 40% year over year, and the Nintendo Switch 2 combined with the Switch 1 down 10% from sales of Switch 1 only last year, which is pretty shocking on its own. But the number is rather astounding. In fact, it's an all-time low for Xbox console unit sales in a November month in the US, according to Piscatella. Admittedly, Xbox has some factors working against it. As already been laid out, it's been a bad month for hardware across the board. Also, Xbox Series is now 5 years old, and with no new hardware refresh this year, there are fewer and fewer reasons to be getting one if you haven't already sprung for an Xbox. In fact, Xbox hardware sales have been in decline in a bit now for the US, at least in the busy retail month of November from 2022 to 2023 to 2024. Xbox sales in November dropped 30% from 22 to 23. There was a drop off of 20%. 2022 was the last November when sales unit went up, specifically up 11% year over year from 2021. So again, like, it's a constant drop for Xbox, and it's not just because, oh well, if you already have an Xbox, you won't get one. Like, there's less than 30 million Series X and S consoles sold, while there was 60 million Xbox One sold. So why aren't these other people upgrading? Like, Microsoft hasn't done a good job, or it could be like I've been saying, like, the exclusives matter and people really want, the exclusive content and the exclusive games and stuff like that. So for me anyway, it's pretty cut and dry. Like, why would somebody buy an Xbox if they can get those Xbox games on a PlayStation, as well as the PlayStation games that don't come to Xbox? Through 2025, Xbox is expensive especially in the US, as Piscatella points out that the average price per unit rose by over 30% year over year. That's because of multiple price hikes this year, including some seriously massive ones in September that impacted all types of Xbox Series consoles, raising prices from $20 to $70 for the Series X 2 terabyte. And that's after a price hike in May that raised consoles for $80 for the S and as much as $130 for the Galaxy Edition. And Xbox Series S, the cheapest of all modern Xbox hardware, released at $300 and now costs $400 or almost $500 for the 1 terabyte, and it only goes up from there. There are now rumors and concerns circulating that Xbox may soon raise prices yet again due to skyrocketing prices of RAM, driven by the growth of generative AI. The existing price hikes are happening at least in part due to that, and while the confusion and uncertainty around what's going to happen, the reality is we don't know. You know, the U.S. economy is doing somewhat better in some areas, but when it comes to, you know, the situation of like the RAM and, you know, being able to kind of sell, you know, these platforms or whatever, I think that we're starting to see, you know, some significant issues across the board. So, yeah, like that's not a good look. Nintendo and PlayStation are seeing some impact. Their price hikes have not nearly been as drastic. PS5 went up $50 earlier in the year, but they had sales and stuff, you know, around the holidays, and Nintendo just opted to jack up prices on its original Switch and accessories while keeping its new console at its already admittedly higher than expected price it was originally set at. Ultimately, this puts the Series S and PS5 All Digital Edition at $400 and the Nintendo Switch 2 at $450 there before sales and discounts. Is it any wonder why people are skipping buying consoles entirely, or if they're buying one at all, they're selling out $50 more for a brand new one, or that if they're skip shopping for a kid, they're spending $200 or $250 on the next Playground, which outsold the Xbox Series console completely in November as well. So now we know that for sure. Like, Xbox wasn't even third, Xbox was fourth, you know, which is incredibly insane to kind of look at, you know. And again, that's crazy to me, right? You have an Xbox, which, again, when Phil Spencer took over, things weren't even that bad. Xbox was in second place. The Wii U was in last place, you know? And Phil Spencer has taken Xbox from second place to fourth place behind next Playground. That's insanity to me. You know, it's crazy. Honestly, it is. It's absolutely crazy. All this amounts to is that everyone is struggling, but Xbox Series, a console that has largely given up on the idea of exclusives and keeps raising prices repeatedly, is struggling the most. Piscatella says that Xbox hardware sales peak, at least for November, is far behind it, peaking in November 2011 with its second highest November ever in 2014. Even if big day one Game Pass games like Call of Duty Black Ops 7s aren't moving the needle to help Xbox hardware regain its former glory, what will? Xbox at least doesn't want to give up on hardware, or so it says. And this is IGN saying it, right? Just this past October, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella was on record essentially hinting that there would indeed be another Xbox eventually, but that it would basically be a PC. At the same time, the company is actively hoping to leave behind big exclusives in favor of a multi-platform strategy that's already here. In fact, releasing and announcing several major first-party games on PlayStation not too long after their Xbox debuts, and pondering even more. Xbox hardware sales may be floundering, but perhaps a better question to ask is whether or not that matters to Xbox anymore themselves. So yeah, I mean, again, we're in a really terrible situation for Microsoft. Listen, I don't know. I don't claim to be an expert with this stuff, but it doesn't feel like they care much about the hardware when you're not doing any kind of sales or anything like that. And there's nothing that's really gonna grab people. You know, it's kind of crazy. So, you know, it's insane to me that I think that that stuff that's kind of happening, and people are still kind of damage controlling it or whatever. It's insanity. But again, it's still kind of crazy to see Xbox fall so far from grace, and it's realistically that there's going to be even more. Imagine if Xbox raises the prices again. You could see a $700 Xbox Series X and a $550 Series S. If they decide to who knows, are they even making them anymore? I think that's a big question that a lot of us have at this particular moment. So, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions on all of this stuff. I certainly do appreciate it. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, comment, all that kind of stuff. Rack them up.